Hello, hello. I hope, sorry, man. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Wednesday morning. It is 10 a.m. currently, in Colorado Springs. Colorado is a beautiful sunny day outside, so I figured I will wake up and start the day with a new podcast episode. If you are new to the channel or new to, just the experience, right? My name is KDK Capri, the mentor and the mentee. And, on the Wealthy and Healthy podcast, we talk about wealth, we talk about health, we talk about everything business, we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about everything that you need. This is an all-in-one entrepreneurship, guide, right? So every day we just break down what it takes, right? And what challenges we face, what ways or what frameworks we can use to grow and develop, right? Because that's always what we worry about as entrepreneurs, right? We want to get better, we want to reach goals and then reach more, right? We want to reach goals and we want to succeed, and then we want to go do it again, right? So today we're going to be talking about why everybody's so broke. We're going to be talking about why only 1% of people make over, 750,000 a year, right? We're going to be talking about why, the rich are getting richer and the poor is getting poorer, right? So today, let me pull up my presentation for y'all. Y'all know I'm all about my presentations. So I'm gonna show you how to unlock wealth today, right? I'm gonna show you how, like, what it looks like when you are in that 1%, right? I'm gonna show you what it is right now when we talk about, why everybody's so broke, right? I'm gonna tell you why everybody's so broke. I'm gonna tell you what everybody's doing, what they need to stop doing, what they need to keep doing, right? So why is, you know my thing is, like, a big emphasis that I have on everything, right, is that no one's teaching this, right? I see a few people that are teaching this, right? I see the Myron Goldens, the Robert Kiyosaki's, the Rich Dad Poor Dad channel, but I don't really see a lot of people talking about, unlocking wealth truly. There's only a few people that are actually talking about this, and those are the people that are in that 1%. But me, as someone who's not in that 1%, I don't make 750,000 or more a year. We getting there, but here's the thing: the 1% of people, the 1% of earners, are our guide, are our study, our reference to how to get there. Like, if you want to learn how to get, how somebody gets somewhere, you got to study them, right? So let's study why these 1%ers are earning over 750,000 and why we are. Let's move on, right? Because the average, according to multiple studies last year, the top 1% of earners had to make at least $787,712 a year. But here's what I want to talk about. Why is the average household income, and this is household income, this isn't just the average, single file person income. The average household income is $80,610, which is a 4% increase since 2022. But why is there such a huge gap, right? Why is, the average household income only 80,000, but, that 1% of earners is making 787,000 at least a year? Why are people so broke, right? And like I said, that 4% increase is pretty good for 2022, right? But not really. Why? Because due to inflation, that really isn't much of a jump, because the average American household debt is approximately $100,005, around 100,000, 106,000. So, um, if we talk about, that jump, right, and look at this, right, like, the income is only 80,000, but the household debt is over 25,000 more than the income, right? So when we look at this, right, on average, the household debt, the household debt to income ratio is 80,000 to 105,000. Now that is crazy. That is sad, right? That is it shows how much stress is on the finances of, the great American people, right? So why is there like the thing is what when we talk about income, right? And we talk about debt, this is bad debt right here. This is all bad debt. This is good debt, right? So there's a few reasons why there's only 1% of people making this, and the majority of people making this, right? Because the majority is most likely the minority in this case. Because when we talk about the rat race, right? When the race to the bottom is what I like to call it, right? When you are on the race to the bottom, you're gonna like eventually you're gonna hit the bottom, right? And right now I'm thinking like this is the bottom. This is the bottom of the bottom because the overall national average credit card debt among cardholders with unpaid balances in quarter one of 2025 was $7,321. That is up almost 6% from quarter one in 2024. That includes debt from bank cards and retail cards. Like quarter one is only 4 months. Could you imagine running up $7,000 in quarter one? That's how much debt. Like I heard not doctor Senator John Kennedy say that, Americans are at the point where they have to, excuse me, uh that Americans are at the point where they have to go donate blood plasma just to go to the grocery store, right? This is real life. Right. That's why we're seeing spikes in homelessness. That's why we're seeing spikes in crime rates, right? Breaking and entering, theft, burglary. And that's another reason why we are seeing a decline in education, right? We're seeing a decline in education. We're seeing a decline in, we have students that are going to graduate high school and don't know how to read their diploma, right? So this is all determining factors of why there's so much stress on the financial household, right? Because we're on a race to the bottom, right? And the more you decline, the more things get worse in your life, right? So, what causes this much stress on the finances of Americans? Good American people, people that pay their bills, people that are hardworking, that just want to have enough money to send their kids to college and pay their rent or mortgage on time. What is causing this stress of finances? Because people still have jobs, right? There is no shortage of jobs, like some people like to say. There's no shortage of jobs. There's no shortage of money. Actually, there's too much money, right? Which I'll break down in a little bit. There's actually too much money, and this is where we get that stress, right? So what is putting so much stress on the finances and the pockets of Americans? Why is everybody so broke? Inflation. Inflation is one of the biggest reasons why everybody is so broke, right? Inflation can be defined as the overall general upward price movement of goods and services in an economy. Now, inflation is a part of the economic cycle, right? Things aren't always going to be up, things aren't always going to be down. But in this case, the key point is that inflation is the beginning of a recession. It's that beginning stage, or that beginning the beginning of the end, basically, is so the stage before a recession. So when the prices go up but wages don't, we see stress on the broker middle class families, right? And we're now seeing this new gap between classes, right? The removal of the middle class is happening before our very eyes. With the stress of the inflation and the government putting us in extreme amounts of debt that we cannot pay off. Taxpayer dollars have to be put to work for taxpayers, right? So if you watch anything about the news, we're seeing the government putting us in extreme amounts of debt. Now, while President Trump and Elon Musk, they are now getting to the point where they are finding extreme corruption, and they are starting to understand where this money is going. Right. So when we talk about inflation, when we talk about the last few years and the last, administration, we have been put in so much stress, and the administrations before us that have put us in so much amount of debt and keep printing money, but they don't have anywhere to put it, or they're just spending it on things that don't need to be, things that are not priority, right? And then they then go double back on the taxpayer, the great American people, and now we are suffering, right? Another thing that is going on is the middle class and the poor class, right, are not only getting broker and broker and broker, right, but they're getting dumber and dumber. And that is the richest goal, right? That's why you see that. That's why there's only 1% of people that are the richest, and that the 1% control the most, obviously, right? Because when you have more money, you have more assets. I mean, when you have more, uh, yeah, basically, when you have more money, you have more assets, essentially. And when you are rich and wealthy, right, 9 times out of 10, you have more assets. So, so So when we talk about, the middle class, right? And what is it going to look like when that middle class gets removed, right? Because when we talk about, rich, poor, and wealthy, I mean, when we talk about rich and wealthy, right? And then we talk about the middle class and we talk about the poor. Middle class is facing several challenges, right? Including those rising costs of living. So when you're in the middle class, you're somewhat, on your way up, right? You're putting a little bit of money away a month. You're, excuse me, you're making a pretty good amount of money, right? You're probably, making that 100, 50, I mean, excuse me, probably making that 80 to 100,000 a year, right? So let's look at this, right? What is it going to look like when the middle class is getting removed, right? Because that's what's happening, right, before our very eyes, right? With the stress of this inflation and the government putting us in that extreme amount of debt, right? The middle class is suffering the most. The broke stay broke, period, right? And the broke pay their bills and then they go broke, right? That's what like the broke think that the goal in life is to pay their bills, right? The middle class wants to live comfortably and pay their bills. The rich want to live on their own terms, right? And bills, like bills are just bills are just bills. Like bills are not important to that 1% or to the rich and the wealthy, right? Because like I said, it's all about mindset, right? So when you get in a situation where your mindset is right, right, money isn't always going to have everything to do with it. Money isn't always going to be the beginning and the end, right? So when you understand the mindset gap, right, then you can start to understand why people are rich, why people are poor, why people are in the middle class, right? But the middle class is suffering the most because they got a little bit of cushion but not too much cushion, right? So now they're going from spending their and then when another thing is when you get in the middle class, right, you start to live a little bit more lavish, right? You probably got a better house, right? You probably got a nicer car. You're able to put a certain amount of money away a month, right? But when we start to see things like inflation and we start to see and we when we're being on the brink of a recession, we see something that I like to call, well, we see something that is, defined by decline, right? And that I said that completely wrong. Let me reroute, right? So we see decline in the middle class, right? Because they're the ones who have a little bit of cushion, right? Broke people can't come out their pocket because they don't have nothing in their pocket. So when the middle class and when the middle class sees rising cost of living, right, and stagnant wages, right? So if your wages go up 15 cents and then eggs go up $10, right? And then you're paying more interest on your credit cards, right? Because you're carrying over such an unpaid balance, such a huge unpaid balance. So now the interest is bigger, right? So then, you get shrinking opportunities, right? Shrinking job opportunities. It doesn't essentially mean that jobs have decreased, right? Because like a lot of unemployed and just unengaged and broke people would say, is that there's no jobs. Oh, there's no jobs. I couldn't find a job. There's not jobs. There's shrinking job opportunities because now like I'll give you a perfect example. Why do you think McDonald's is using robots now? I was seeing something on TikTok the other day where one of the cashiers they don't even make the drinks anymore. They just put them in a thing and the thing spins and then it puts the ice in it and then the the whatever like the Coke or whatever comes out. And this lady was still waiting in line for 20 minutes. Why? Because there is such a gap in between, the rich getting richer. So the rich are getting richer and they're also getting smarter. And it's vice versa. The poor are getting poorer and they're also getting dumber, right? So these factors contribute to the decline in the middle class, the class's share of the economy and the widening income gap. Right, so the middle class is facing they're getting the rough end of the stick because they're actually the ones who are on the way up. So like this is a perfect example, right? So poor are never going to be here, right? They're going to get this is not this is fluctuation, right? This is like inflation, right? This is there things are not always up, things are not always down. This is what the middle class is going to look like now, right? Because the middle class is then going to be in a point where in a situation to where they're going up, right? Things might decline a little bit, might have had an emergency, then they're going back up, they get a little bit of momentum, right? Then we have something called what? Inflation, right? To where egg prices go down, to where interest goes up, to where bread goes up, to where your car note went from 300 to 600, right? And now your credit and then in turn your credit is taking a huge hit, which is going to shrink those opportunities, right? So the middle class is facing such fluctuation. There's no and they don't know how to they don't know how to navigate through these fluctuating prices, these the income gaps, right? Because we've never been taught, right? So now, like I said, why those jobs haven't decreased, right? People, they would say, and some would say that they've actually multiplied, right? But here's the issue: we have more and more Americans who are used to living comfortably, or doing the bare minimum and living in this mental rat race that they finally reached the bottom. So when you race to the bottom, one day you're gonna get there. And America has finally got there. That's why there is going to be no middle class soon, because there's only going to be rich and there's only going to be poor, because the middle class is either going to have two options. They're either going to have to, um, you know, uh, rise above essentially and find new ways to make their money work, or they're going to stay in that broke mindset, that living in the mental rat race mindset, and they're going to start racing to the bottom. What does racing to the bottom look like? That looks like you spending all your time working. That looks like you spending all your time just trying to catch up on bills. That looks like you spending all your time in a situation or a job or a career or a relationship that is not that is like the only reason you're staying is pure comfortability or convenience or just what is it, just routine, like it's something you're just used to, you don't know how to do anything else. I've heard a lot of people say, I've asked a whole lot of people this, like, why haven't you started your business? I'm just so used to working. So when you say stagnant, this is why you're broke. When you stay in the mindset of I don't have to work, I just have to, I mean, I don't have to work for myself, I just have to find a great job. This is why you're so broke, right? And this is why everyone around you is so broke, right? And this is why America is dealing with such fluctuation in with inflation, because there's a difference between inflation and deflation, right? But when we see inflation, and then you add it with the fact that people are getting dumber, right? We're seeing more spikes in people not even being able to read, right? I seen something the other day where a student was suing their high school because they were not taught how to read properly and were still graduated, right? So certain things like this is why everyone is so broke, because we're seeing a spike in inflation, which is going to cause people to have their backs against the wall, right? And you're gonna see what people, you're gonna see what people are gonna start to do, and that what characters they have, right? Are they gonna be in that rise up? I'm like, this is my only choice, this is my chance, this is my time to boss up, or are they gonna be like, oh, this is too hard, to blame the government, now I'm broke, this is why I'm homeless, right? This is the future that we, are seeing, right? So when we talk about that 1% earners, right, you got to ask yourself, how do you get there? Because like that 1%, if you're making over that $780,000 a year, right, you're probably making around 45 to 68K a month. That's 68,000 at the most, 45,000 at the least, right? So when you get to that point, which is hard, right? A lot of people don't even make that in a year, right? And then when you tell people like that make $1 million a year, you tell them like I only make 40,000 a year. They're like, whoa, how do you live off that, right? I've done it. A lot of most 95% of my family has done it. 95% of my community is still doing it, right? So how would you get there? Like, how do you get to the point where you look the part, you sound the part, and you are, right? That one percenter. I'm gonna give you four reasons why the 1% earners are where they are because and these are four reasons why this 1% is not gonna ever get to 2%, right? Because like I said, people are getting dumber and broker, right? So the four reasons that, these 1%ers, this is how people make over $1 million or a little bit under $1 million a year. They have multiple streams of income. Now imagine if you were making $780,000 a year. Imagine what type of work you would have to put in at one job to get that type of income. Imagine how much type of work you have to put in to get 45 to 68K a month in that job to be in that 1% if you only had one job. You would have to extremely break your back, basically working 24 hours a day, right? Especially if you're on minimum wage, right? Number two, invest in your three whys. The three whys are important. You want to invest in your health, your development, and your growth. Those are the three whys. And number three, connections. Connections is a big one, right? People that are in that 1% are very exclusive, right? So these connections make change the trajectory of the world essentially, right? That's why you see the top 1%ers like BlackRock or who was it, the dude who was buying up all the farmland. This is where connections come in hand, right? You can get more opportunities, you can get credit, you can get word of mouth marketing, right? You can get a community to build around, right? So connections are extremely important. And habits and routines, this is a biggie. Habits and routines are the reason why you are either broke or you're wealthy or rich, whatever term you like to use. Habits and routines are the foundation of anyone's success or anyone's failure, right? What type of habits do you have? What type of routines do you have, right? So top 1% of earners, I guarantee, do the in your daily routine, their daily routine is extremely different, right? So when you create a higher level of value, you not only can buy your time back, but in that higher level of value, you can create habits and routines and turn this into a lifestyle, right? So let's debunk this though. So, like I said, that investing in multiple streams of income, right? Working at a job trying to make $1 million a year is merely a dream, not reality, right? This should never be the end goal. So build a brand, serve a community, become exclusive. Educators are among the wealthiest all around. So when transition into retirement or you're just not working anymore, you're taking a step back, educate. Number one, you're going to make even more money. Educators make 10 times more money. I talked about this in my Visionary Mindset webinar, right? If I'm a real estate owner and I make, say 68K a month, right? I'm in that top 1%, right? And then I start teaching, I can teach people how to make 70K a month. So let's just round it up. Say I'm gonna teach you. My name is KDK Capri. I'm a real estate investor. I make 68K a month doing fix and flips. I want to teach you how to make 70K a month doing fix and flips or just how to start your real estate business. And I only charge 10,000. Like I said in the other video, who wouldn't pay 10,000 to learn how to make 70? A lot of people would. So I can make 60K, 70K in an hour just by onboarding 7 clients, right? So educators are the wealthiest around the world, right? So when you get a business, right, and you complete something or you learn something, right, turn it into a product, right? And become an educator. Everybody can be an educator, right? Because the best teachers are the best students. So if you've ever been a student, you can be a teacher, right? So investing in your three whys, investing in your health, investing in your development, investing in your growth, is a great tool, right? Because you can use these skills to create value and build your lifestyle around it. And then again, going on to build a brand. Connections are extremely important. Why? Because to get in those rooms, to use your knowledge and to, render your services and skills, um, you know, connections get you in rooms that those don't, right? If I'm the smartest in the room and I don't know anybody, first of all, nobody's going to know that I'm the smartest in the room. But if I'm essentially someone who knows a lot of people, I can get into the rooms where I need to get where I know I need to go to get that knowledge, right? The knowledge that I seek. Right. And don't be afraid to pay to get in a room. It's not like people say, oh, why would I pay to get in a room? Why would I pay for promotion? Right. That means it's not genuine. Why? When you went and bought that Charmin Ultra Soft, or when you went and bought that Versace cologne, or you went and bought the new Gucci belt, most times you probably seen a commercial, and you always had that kept in your mind, so when you wanted to go buy it, you knew about it, right? So don't be afraid to pay, but don't be cheap. Don't be skeptical either, right? Always let your light shine. It's important to, get in those rooms and be yourself, right? But also allow or show others how to, right? So allow people to share and shine that light with you, right? Or show other people how to get in that light, right? Because, like I said, educators are the wealthiest around the world, right? And habits and routine make or break an opportunity, an entrepreneur, a failed goal, or a successful goal, right? Find what works for you, find the frameworks and plug and play, right? Because you don't want to copy anybody. You don't want to, I mean, excuse me, you don't want to you don't want to, uh, yeah, I use the right word first. You don't want to copy anybody. You want to plug and play, right? I bet I was focused on that drink. So after hearing all this, I want you guys to ask yourself this, right? How can you implement this? How can you start to study the rich and understand how to get multiple streams of income? How can you start investing into your health? How can you start investing into your development and your growth, right? What type of connections do you need to make, and what type of connections do you need to cut off to get you to that making that money, right? Maybe tomorrow's episode I'll probably talk about, what type of, how to get to that 1%, right? Or what habits and routines, how to get those connections, right? How to invest, right? I'll probably talk about that tomorrow. But implementation can get you anywhere. So ask yourself how important this is to you. Ask yourself what it looks like, and ask yourself who you're gonna model and who you're gonna what information you're gonna use to plug and play, right? Because implementation can get you anywhere, right? Um, and I really just want to encourage everyone to, just like I said, let your light shine, right? Understand your value. Understand where you want to be in life, right? Because then you can understand how you need to get there, right? If you're young and you want to become the next LeBron, right? At least you know who you're gonna plug and play in, right? So you plug and play how LeBron keeps himself fit, right? And you can start doing that as a youngin, right? And maybe even play 10 years longer than he did, right? Because he's known for being, the strongest, healthiest player for the longest, right? So you plug and play and you know your value, right? So implementation can get you anywhere, right? So that concludes today's episode, right? And I think it was important to talk about this today because, a lot of episodes further coming, we're going to be talking about how to invest, right? So I wanted you guys to understand the importance of investing in yourself and the importance of becoming getting out of that middle class or poor and understanding the economy around us, right? Because when we can understand the economy and we can understand what's going on in the world, right, we can understand where we can come in, right? We know where we're gonna jump in and help, right? We know where to service our community. We know who to talk to when we wanna packages for the world essentially, right? So know your worth, right? And know yourself. Drake said it. So keep in mind that every single day that you wake up is a day to invest in yourself, is a day to grow, is a day to motivate and inspire, right? So uh I think that was it. I'm looking at all my bullet points. Yeah, we did everything today. This was a quick one. So again, I appreciate everybody for taking the time out with me and just listening to what I have to say. This was some slight today. We're gonna come back with some more heat tomorrow. And I just appreciate everybody who has been tuning in, everybody who's watched any of my videos. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you're feeling. We can never, you can never make me feel some type of way in a bad way, right? You can only tell me how to improve. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Share it with a friend. And just let them know, K Capri dropping that sauce, all right? So it is KD K Capri, the mentor and the mentee. If you want to watch the Visionary Mindset webinar, I'm going to drop a link below. If you also want to learn how to fix your credit, I have a link, I have a video for that I dropped a couple days ago as well. So I'll put that link in the description, right? If you're looking to, if you're looking for credit repair, if you're looking for entrepreneurship, mindset coaching, I'm always here. I do free consultations. So, just tapping in with y'all and just let me know, man, because I really want to start growing this community. I really want to start doing things the right way. Not that we weren't, but I want to start, expanding in the right way. So, hit me up, man. Tap in, strike me, So again, it is KDK Capri, the mentor, the mentee. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in to this week's episode of the Wealthy and Healthy Podcast. And I'll be back soon with some more heat. Stay tuned.